in what looks like I guess you could say, a show of not putting up with it, or not being willing to accept what took place in 2016, one independent senator who's not an independent senator anymore, he's running as a Democrat, one Bernie Sanders, has put a shot across the bow of, you can call it, the Democratic Party establishment. Bernie Sanders, Weigel described it as, and I don't know if this is to be taken literally, nailing a letter to the door of Center for American Progress, which boils down to lay off of the attacks. Stop attacking me. We're supposed to have a contest of ideas. And if you don't stop attacking me, then any level of agreement that I had goes out the window. And by agreement, I suppose he means a civil contest. Meaning not necessarily want to create a situation where Donald Trump can use this chaos that's taken place in the Democratic Party for his own political ends during the race itself. I suspect this is why they want to have somewhat of a civil contest. I have to be honest, I don't necessarily know how you entirely have a civil contest under these circumstances. The Democratic Party has taken it upon itself in order to cripple lefties who are trying to run in a race and get out dinosaurs, meaning they're protecting themselves. They're insulating themselves against losses for who's in power at this moment. Ocasio-Cortez has gone so far as to say she may not even pay her dues. This is so onerous. I've had people who were trying to run in the race who weren't able to find people to help them, assist them in running in the race because they were terrified of the sanctions that the DCCC was willing to put on them. And I just showed an article showing that corporate Democrats, which amounted to nearly the entirety of the party, has been meeting in secret across the United States with one key mission: stopping Sanders. How do you have a civil contest in these terms when the party itself is allied against one of the people who are running in the race? Now, the party being allied with him doesn't completely translate to an unfair process, but it will be unfair from the standpoint of the media and from the standpoint of the perspectives that are being put out, especially when various elements of the party have their fingers intertwined into the media wing, meaning the distinction between media and politics blurs tremendously so. Sanders putting this note, or you can say nailing it to the door of the Center for American Progress, is essentially making the point: you're attacking me. I am aware of it. My supporters are aware of it. Cut it out. It's a fascinating thing to read and a fascinating thing to watch. I suppose from Sanders' standpoint, he has to get this across. One of the biggest digs, and if I'm being honest, one of the biggest scars that I have, and I would imagine many of his supporters has, is this feeling that there was no fight in 2016. That ultimately he was being cheated and he didn't say anything about the cheating. If I am being honest, even the silence on Julian Assange to some degree harkens to that particular thread that doesn't want to be pulled. How can you say something about Julian Assange when Julian Assange was the guy that revealed you were being cheated? After all, and there's another tie-in even to this story. So let's move along on that part. So we know this part, that they were meeting in secret trying to figure out how to stop him. We know these meetings, David Brock, of course, elements that were associated and allowed with Hillary Clinton. We have donors. We have Nancy Pelosi. We have Busilig, whatever his name is. We have Tom Perez. Democratic Party establishment against one Mr. Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders responds. And apparently he's responding to attacks that have been leveled at Bernie Sanders. Let's read the letter. I want to get into the letter itself because I find this letter to be awesome. Center for American Progress responded to this saying we had nothing to do with Think Progress's stories, but we'll get into that in a moment. This is the letter Bernie Sanders put up, and I'll just read it. Dear members of the board for Center for American Progress and CAP Action Fund, I guess that's the advocacy wing. I write to express my deep concern and disappointment with the destructive role that Center for American Progress and its affiliated Action Fund arm are playing in the critical mission to defeat Donald Trump. Last week, you published an article in Think Progress criticizing me for my appearance and my income, and for the income I earned writing a book. Then, a day later, you published a video and dishonestly attacked me for hypocrisy in my efforts to address income inequality in America. a video that was excitedly discussed on many conservative websites. Many of the conservative websites was also talking about the attack where about Bernie Sanders writing a book and becoming a millionaire because of it. They're picking up the attacks that you're leveling against Bernie Sanders and using it themselves. This is what conservative media is doing. And CAPD, Center for American Progress, knows exactly what they're doing. The whole anti-Sanders thing. Just to make a quick point, if you remember in the New York Times ad, the whole point was, how do we attack Sanders in a way where his supporters doesn't realize that we're attacking Sanders? Meaning, how do we make it look like the establishment is not against Bernie Sanders when it's against Bernie Sanders? Now, in this very particular case, the attacks that are being levied by CAPD, who CAPD is saying we had nothing to do with, are now being picked up by right-wing media and used to attack Bernie Sanders, since he's the frontrunner. How do we attack Bernie Sanders without making it look like we're attacking Bernie Sanders? We give it to the right wing to do it for us. Sadly, I'm not the only candidate in the 2020 field who has experienced personal attacks from your institution. My friend and colleague Elizabeth Warren was unfairly targeted by the November 2017 article on Think Progress that echoed Donald Trump's bad faith character, that she was a hypocrite about her ancestry. The attack that was linked to Drudge Report and immediately immersed her into a rather unhelpful debate. Again, in October 2018, you published an article stating that she was hurting Native American people. That's not all. In February of this year, an article on Think Progress attacked another friend and colleague of mine, Cory Booker, for moving in a progressive direction and joining with me on a prescription drug importation bill. Center for American Progress leader Neera Tanden repeatedly calls for unity while simultaneously maligning my staff and supporters and belittling progressive ideas. I worry that the corporate money CAPD is receiving is inordinately and inappropriately influencing its role in playing in the progressive movement. Oh, I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. I and other Democratic candidates are running campaigns based on principles and ideas and are not engaging in mudslinging or personal attacks on each other. Meanwhile, the Center for American Progress is using the resources to smear Senator Booker, Senator Warren, and myself, among others. This is hardly the way to build unity or to win the general election. I will be informing my grassroots supporters of my foregoing concerns that I have about my role CAPD is playing. Should your actions evolve in the coming months, I am happy to reconsider what kind of partnership we can have. The counterproductive negative campaigning needs to stop. The Democratic primary must be a campaign of ideas, not a bad faith smears. Please help play a constructive role in the effort to defeat Donald Trump. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. I await your reply. Their reply is, we had nothing to do with the articles that are published against you, and that Think Progress is somehow a separate and distinct entity. Is Think Progress a separate and distinct entity? I'm glad you asked me that question. So, take a look at this. Let's go to WikiLeaks. The Clinton people didn't like an article that was on Think Progress. Response, forward, clip, Think Progress. Hillary Clinton makes dishonest attack on Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan. In the letter. Maybe we can work on the headlines. Right here. Judd is working on it. Maybe he should just do all the headlines. And it says right here, there are crazy leftists down here. There's some good people in these ranks. We got to get those people we have to stop those good people from writing the headlines. And then he says, Judd is working on it. Maybe he should just do all the headlines. Fast forward. What you need to know about Hillary Clinton's attack on single-payer healthcare. Understand, right? Starts off, Hillary Clinton makes dishonest attack on Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan. Changed. What you need to know about Hillary Clinton's attack on the single-payer. What was the intermediary thing? What was the thing that got it to change? Maybe we can work on these headlines. But yeah, they're totally separate and distinct. They're totally separate and distinct. Neera Tanden has no influence at all. Oh, who is this from Neera Tanden? Man, that's amazing. Think Progress is a separate and distinct entity. I love that. And that's why WikiLeaks is awesome. It's just one of the many reasons why WikiLeaks is awesome. I'm not going to keep this long. This one wasn't meant to be long. This one was just a heads up. It seems that Bernie Sanders, at the very least, is acknowledging that this contest is not necessarily going to be the fairest, at least from the standpoint of the Democratic establishment. Whether or not that translates into them cheating him electorally, and understand, those are different things. Up to be seen. We do know, however, that the anti-Bernie stuff is in full swing. And Sanders is pointing a thumb at it right now, early on. It sounds like they had some kind of agreement not to attack each other. And again, you can understand why. Anything that they use is going to be brought up, drudged up by the right wing in order to hit Democrats with themselves. Hey, that other Democrat said this, so we can use this, and it has that much more effect because the other Democrats agreed on it. So yeah, they're going to try to be civil with one another, but within that civility, they need to be able to create a distinction between themselves so that you know that this person is this person and the other person is not. And if you can't in some way make that difference, then there's going to be a problem. Now, one of the key benefits for Sanders is that everybody knows he declares that he's a socialist, and people accept, because of how much they scream that the guy's a radical, that they accept he's to the left of the rest of them. He doesn't have to bitch and scream that much about it. People accept that that's who he is. The others are going to have to put on some kind of airs and pretend that they're going to be something that they're not, in which case they're going to have to delineate themselves somehow, either on the debate stage, or if you're just going to be honest and say, okay, I think the guy's more earnest. But however they delineate themselves, they will have to do that at some point. But Sanders is making a point. You guys are doing attacks on us when we ourselves are trying to have a civil campaign. I don't know how true that is. I would imagine there's somebody in the campaign who's being the benefit of CAPD's attention, or at the very least CAPD's non-attacks, let's say it that way. And Booslig, whatever his name is, he apparently was at some of the meetings that these guys were having for the anti-Sanders faction. So there's that. Maybe he will get the benefit of their attention. But at the very least, Sanders is making the point, I'm aware of what you're doing, and the world needs to be aware of it too. And this story, by the way, was covered by the New York Times, Washington Post, all sorts of places, pointing out, oh my God, Sanders is raising to the fact that these lefties are punching at these other lefties. We'll see how this evolves. I'm curious on what he plans on doing if this gets worse, because as this goes on, this will get worse. And of course he knows that it's going to get worse. I'm just more so curious on what he's going to do about it. Let's see, who's here, if anybody's here. I don't plan on keeping this one long. This one was just kind of a quick video to give a heads up on what was taking place. All right, guys, if you enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Tepid applause to Sanders on this. Again, I'm just curious on what takes place when this evolves, not if this evolves. They've already made the point that the anti-Sanders stuff is out in the wings waiting. And they're talking about attacking him sooner rather than later. The question is, what is Sanders going to do about it? That's the fascinating part. So we'll see. I suspect that this is his first step in regards to an escalating or potentially escalating back and forth between elements of the Democratic Party. It's funny. A 70-year-old being the herald of a new Democratic Party. Isn't that backwards? And yet, nonetheless, true. The best chance of reinstalling the Democratic Party is with that one Mr. Bernie Sanders. Thanks all.